Welcome back to Simrite Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this beautiful gown with ruffles on the sleeve. So I'll be putting you through on how to make this dress from start to finish. So you can see the ruffles, they are actually looking very gorgeous and beautiful for this particular dress. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn how this beautiful gown is made. As you can see right there, it has a band. It's so beautiful. So to start off this tutorial, you need your basic bodice pattern. So I've already made my basic bodice pattern, as you can see. So I'm labeling them: the shoulder, chest, bust point, under bust point, and your waistline. So just go ahead and make your basic bodice pattern. So the next thing we want to do now is to mark the neckline. So I'm marking the neckline at 6 inches. So 6 inches is standard for a yoke neckline or any neckline at all. So I'm going to divide my shoulder into two, the shoulder seam line into two, and connect to the bust point for the over bust contouring. So I came out by 0.75, which is 1.5 inches as that intake for the over bust. So I'm connecting it accordingly. So after that, I'm going to blend that into the armhole. So I want to make a sweetheart neckline for this dress. So for the sweetheart neckline, I'm taking 8 inches from my shoulder. So just measure and take your appropriate neck depth. So I will go in by 3 inches from the center front, just to get the sweetheart neckline the way I actually want it to sit. So this is actually a plus size dress, so that's why I have to come in by 3 inches on that point. So I'll just go a little bit up to blend the sweetheart. So I just want the sweetheart to blend accordingly. So just draw any beautiful shape of sweetheart of your choice. You can use your ruler, you can freehand it, whichever way. So now, after making the sweetheart neckline, I'm trying to trace it out so it comes out very well. So the next thing we want to do is to contour the under bust point. So, but before that, I will want to mark out the neckline. So the neckline, I'm using 4 inches on the width for my neckline. So you can increase, you can reduce, it all depends on what you want. So but we have a little yoke which is attached to this particular neckline. So for that yoke, I want to create the yoke right now. So the neck depth is 8 inches, which is what I use for my neckline, which I've done. I've shown you how I got that. So I'm just trying to emphasize it again in case you did not get it well. So now I'll come in by 3 inches from the shoulder for that yoke attachment. I will connect the 3 inches to the first over bust dart. So that is the yoke which we will attach to the sweetheart neckline. So after that, we want to go over to the under bust. So the under bust contouring, you can use whatever method that works for you, but for me, I take my under bust, divide by 4, whatever I have left, I'm going to put it 0.25 in front, and the rest of it, I have 1.5 inch right there. So I'm going to use it to contour my under bust. So use any method of your choice, but I like to use this method. It works perfectly for me. So I've connected, and I'm going to connect the dart to the waistline accordingly. So we are done with this pattern right now. The shaded part, I'm going to cut it off, and the dress is ready. The pattern is ready. So I will now go ahead and label them F1, F2, and I will start up the cutting right away. So I just want to check if my pattern is correct, my measurements are correct before I cut. So make sure you cut accordingly, because whatever you cut, you have to cut according to how you drafted. So that's why I'm showing this part on camera. I need you to see the full cutting of this dress. So I'll go ahead and cut. I'll cut the yoke line into the sweetheart neckline. I'll go into the center front line too, and then cut out the patterns accordingly. So that is how I'm going to cut it. I just want to show the full part so you don't get confused on how I cut it. So I'll just go ahead and cut off and close up my bust dart. So I'll cut open my bust dart and use my adhesive to close it up accordingly. So after that, the pattern for the front is ready. So we'll now move over to the pattern for the back. So this is how the front pattern is going to look like with its yoke attached to it. So we'll move over to the back now. The back is very easy. So you need your basic bodice back, shoulder, chest line and waistline. So the next thing we want to do now, the measurement remains the same, but the waist is 2 inches difference because of the bust dart. The bust dart is 2 inches. So my waist was 18 inches, the back is 16. So I've imputed my waist divided by 4 everything. So I'm going to contour by 1 inch the back to avoid zip bulge. Then I'm going to retake my measurements from that point. I'll retake my measurements, my bust divided by 4, my waist divided by 4, and reconnect. So the back is actually dartless. I'm not using any dart for the back at all. So that means we are going to impute the neckline. So to impute the neckline right now, I'm going to come down by 2 inches for the back neckline, and bring in my yoke to mark my 3 inches width, which I use for the front. Then I'm going to connect. It's actually a high neck back anyway. So I'll go ahead and cut, because like I said, there's no much issues with the back. So we are done, and we are done with the back. So once I cut off, we'll now proceed to the cutting on fabric. So I love to show how I cut my patterns in case we have beginners joining us on this channel, so it will be very easy for you to understand. So after cutting the back pattern, this is what I have. So I'm going to bring in all my patterns which I made for this dress before we cut on fabric. So make sure you match them up to be sure everything matches nice and beautiful. So I'll proceed to the cutting on fabric right now. So here I've cut on fabric. The back I added 1 inch for zipper, 2 inches on the side, and half an inch on the neck and on the waist. And the center front is on fold. So I cut both lining and fabric, as you can see, adding my seam allowances accordingly. Make sure you make a notch at the underbust, because that will aid you to sewing the bustier very well. So here, these are my patterns, and we'll proceed. I've cut the linings for them too. So but we are going to pad the fabric part of this dress, so which I've already padded. I've padded it and I've sewn it. So this is what I have after sewing. So I will just go ahead and attach the yoke to the fabric, and I'm going to attach the yoke for the lining. So I'm attaching them separately. So here I've attached everything. Next is to match them together and sew the neckline. So make sure you give it a good press. So I'm done sewing. I'm going to make notch on the sweetheart and on the sweetheart area accordingly. So after that is done, I'm going to top stitch on the lining part, flipping all the seams to the lining. I'm going to top stitch accordingly. So this is what I have. It's actually looking beautiful at this point. So for the back, I'll just go ahead and pick up the lining and the fabric and match their necklines accordingly too. So I'll just sew lining neckline to fabric neckline and top stitch as well. So I'll go ahead, sew and top stitch. So this is what I have. Everything is ready right now. So I'll just go ahead and match their shoulder seam lines together. Joining them together, I'll stitch with 0.5 inch. So make sure you mark them at the seams and then proceed to the sewing. So after sewing, this is what I have. Everything is looking nice and beautiful. So I've attached the down part. So the down part of it, you can make anything. It can be a straight cut, it can be a 6 pieces, whatever. So I just added a 2 inches band to this dress to make it look more gorgeous and beautiful. So now I'm going to match lining to lining, fabric to fabric, and shaping the dress. So I'm done shaping. So I'm going to sew my zipper. I'll just go ahead and sew my zipper right now. So I'm going to sew my zipper, but I later changed my zip to black because I felt black is better than the red one I was using. So I have a perfect inseam finishing for this particular dress. So just sew your zipper any way or anyhow you wish. So now we want to go over to the sleeve. So I'm going to use my basic sleeve. I'm cutting a long sleeve at 22 inches. And I've added my seam allowance of 1 inch for my long sleeve. So I'll just go ahead and cut it off, add half an inch on the sleeve head to attach this sleeve to the dress. So since you are making a ruffle on it, just add an ease of 1 inch to your sleeve. If your bicep is 15, add 1 inch, which is 16. Then I'm going to split open the grain line because that is where we are going to attach the ruffle. So I added 0.5 inch for sewing the ruffle, as you can see. So for my sleeve now, I will separate them. As you can see, I have both right and left sleeve, which I cut everything together and later split them open. So I'm just trying to cut out the front neck sleeve line. Just cut it and trim it off accordingly. Okay, you know I cut it together back and front, but the front is usually deeper than the back. So that's what I'm just trying to trim off, as you can see. So I just made a notch showing the front sleeve. So make sure you make a notch to show the front, or else the sleeve will confuse you after attaching your ruffle. So here I've made my spiral ruffle of 4 inches. Of course, you know how to go about your spiral ruffle. So I made 4 inches of my spiral ruffle. So I will just go ahead and taper the end of it. So at the end of the day, after sewing with a fishing line, it comes out very well and beautiful. So I'll place this spiral on top of my fabric and cut. So here I cut so many pieces actually, but I forgot to show that part, but I'm using this remaining part to show you how I cut my spiral. So here I've sewn with my fishing line. So I just took it to people that can make fishing lines very well. I don't know how to do it exactly, so they did it for me, and this is what I have. So you can just take it to, you know, people that weave to do it for you. Add the fishing line. So I'm going to attach the tapered end, about 4 or 5 pieces on one grain line. Okay, each sleeve will have like 8 or 10 of this, but for one particular, a quarter of a sleeve, I'm going to add 5 or 6. You can see me putting all of them together. So I'll proceed to the sewing machine. I will go ahead and sew it. So I came up by 1 inch because I'm going to turn with my lining. So just come up with 1 inch before you start sewing. So I'll proceed to stitch right now. So I will sew and this is what I have after sewing. You can see I faced the spiral flans. I used organza anyway, organza fabric. I faced it inwards so that by the time, and I have 6 inches I left, so just place a notch at that 6 inches so you'll be able to finish up the coily part of it. So I stitched straight from the elbow into the 6 inches. I did that for the 2 sleeve, both the front and the back. You can see them, they are just quarter as I cut. So next is to put the 2 sleeves together as 1 sleeve. So I'm going to stitch at 1/2 inch. I'll stitch at 1/2 inch following the already existing stitches, and I'll keep pushing in the flounces inside. Once I get to the 6 inches, I'll stop and push in my flounce and sew only the seam allowance for the sleeve. So that is what I'm going to do now. So here I'm done, and this is what I got. So you can see the part 6 inches, nothing is there. So we are now going to trace the spiral on the dress. So I'll just make as I want my spiral to go. That is how I'm going to trace it, after which we'll pick them 666 or 555 as you stitched, and then sew on the lines I made. So I actually had a lot of them there, so I cut off some. I was unable to sew all, so I cut off some. So you just go ahead and sew, take your time to sew. So this is the lining I made. The lining, I did not divide the center grain line because the lining is going to cover the seam line. So just cut out your lining the way I cut it out right now, and then we are going to use it to turn this sleeve. So you can see the coils I made, they are looking so beautiful. So I'll bring in the lining right now, and I'm going to match it accordingly, and then stitch right side to right side on the grain line. So I'm just looking at the part that is for the front so I don't mix them up. So remember, it has a notch to show the front piece. So that's what I'm looking for, to see whether the front notch is matching. So after that, I'm going to sew the down part of my sleeve and then top stitch. I'm sewing at 0.5 inch and I have top stitch and giving it a good press too. So I'll just place the sleeve, arrange it, and stitch on the seam lines. I want to stitch it at 1 sleeve. I'm stitching at as one sleeve. So here, after stitching, this is what I have. So you can see it's covered right now and it's looking beautiful. So I've already mark out my sleeve measurements. You can see the chalk line on the sleeve. I'll put it together now and I'll follow the stitches and I'll go ahead and stitch. So after stitching, this is what I have. The sleeve is actually looking beautiful. So the next thing I'm going to do is to attach each sleeve to the dress. The dress I just made, I'll bring it back and I'm going to attach them accordingly. So I'll just go ahead and open up my zipper and turn the sleeve and attach. Just open up your zipper and turn the armhole. Insert your sleeve and match it armhole to armhole, and you match this sleeve line to sleeve line. So I'll secure with my pin and I'll go over to my sewing machine. I'm going to sew the sleeve round. So I will repeat that for the 2 sleeves. So I'll just take my time and sew at 0.5 inch around the sleeve. So after sewing the sleeve, this is what I got after sewing the sleeve. So the dress is ready. So I believe you learned a lot from this class. So if you have not subscribed, please kindly subscribe and share this video, and see you in the next class. Bye.